Perfect. Well, yeah, we're.
2, 1, go.
Yeah, we're just starting the show, but yeah, we don't normally take phone calls, but I think it's Donald Trump on the line. It's something about, he's saying something about building a wall to keep out Julio Assange. Oh, no. Okay, it's actually, it's not Donald Trump, it's actually Hillary Clinton, who wants to let Julian Assange in so they can, I guess, put tape all over the guy's mouth so he can't, and tape up his fingers and keep him away from a keyboard so he can't do any more rascally things that he's been. Oh, okay. See, welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. Tonight, Mark Morash and I will be discussing local politics. And who knows what else. We're going to go wherever we're going to go. But first of all, Mark, introduce yourself, as you have been doing that normally, and tell the audience what you're doing. What are you up to? What got you involved in all this stuff?
Mark Morash, co-editor, Art Young's Good Morning, family project to resurrect a 97-year-old satire magazine, because that's what we do. Got me involved in this stuff. Well, Bernie, of course. I'm lacking in pins today. No hat. But it's keeping the movement going. It's keeping the desire for revolution going.
And revolution with a small r rather than a capital R. Or is it a capital R instead of a small r?
Maybe it's like a piratey revolution, so it's a revolution with lots of R's. Because that's what we need. That's because I think that's kind of the point, is we're wanting to do this without the swashbuckling, without the violence.
It's funny you should say that, because Kristen and I were just up at the Cape. And shout out to Cape Cod, and there's a museum up there. It's a pirate museum where they've actually, 20 plus years ago, they found a ship that had been almost a mythical ship, the Widda. They found it, they started bringing things up, and they've been excavating this site off of the inner part of the Cape, the bay side, literally for 30 years. And the narrative there, you learn about pirates, and you learn about the loot and the travels and where they went, and that they were involved with the slave trade. But one very interesting thing that I had forgotten that was good to hear again, and is that on a pirate ship, you essentially had a democracy, and you had pirates from all different backgrounds, including occasionally a woman pirate. But you had pirates that voted to elect who would be captain, who would be in charge, whom they all trusted, collectively trusted the most, and then when they gathered in their booty from thievery, murder, mayhem, all the bad parts about it, when they gathered in the loot, they would divide it up fairly, so that people could, so these horrible people that were murdering and stealing ships and doing all kinds of bad things, at the very least could walk away and get a little something for it.
So what you're saying is pirates were for economic equality.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. And I guess they got. I guess none of them had experience working at Walmart.
So what we're saying right now is that the U.S. government is taking on the role of the Pirates of the Caribbean film of the tea company.
It's been reversed.
Oh.
The parts have been reversed. Instead of the bad guys have become the good guys have become the bad guys, and the bad guys have become the good guys, if you could look at it that way.
We live in an anti-hero age, I suppose.
Yeah, but again, reach out to a great museum. It's pretty close to where the Elbow is at Cape Cod, where you go up to Provincetown, which we also were at. But it's kind of in the Elbow part area. I think it's in Dennis or East Dennis or West Dennis, one of the Dennises. But
Leary, Miller.
Yeah, something like that. So local elections.
Okay.
Who do you want to start with? What election piques your interest?
Well, much to my happiness, and I suppose also my chagrin, we talked about this first before the show.
Yeah.
We have to give a shout out to Elizabeth Esty.
Yes.
For coming out, finally, if I pause there, it sounds like an entirely different thing, and
Yes.
saying that she is against the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And I will say, I will be honest here, I did not believe she would ever come out against TPP.
And yet she did.
She did.
And she did it in writing.
Yes.
Plain as day. And we're, we spent a lot of time in conversation with Congresswoman Esty. And sometimes it takes a lot of hard work on the part of citizens to motivate people that are representing us to even discuss controversial issues. Yeah. Not that there's any controversy to do with the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's just flat out wrong. It allows corporations to usurp the power of American federal, state, and local government. And yes, it is a local issue, because if, in the case of the town of Danbury passes an ordinance that's in the citizens of Danbury's best interest, and a corporation wants to do business in Danbury, and they feel like they've been slighted, that their profitability has been damaged by a law or a referendum passed by a municipality, they sue. They can sue. And where do they go to sue? Do they go to our court system? No. They go to a court system that's run by their peers, by other multinational corporations who sit and preside on the question, and they make the ruling, and the ruling takes away any possibility of any kind of appeal, even to the Supreme Court. They've taken away our municipal powers.
It's a horrible bastardization of the idea of being tried in front of your peers,
Yeah.
because it allows corporate peers. It's a strange extension of the idea that a corporation is a person, because no corporation is going to rule against another corporation, because it would be to the detriment of all of them.
It ultimately comes back to them.
And the whole thing came down to, and it's in all the 5 districts in Connecticut, but the ability to have enough people respectfully and adamantly and coherently and thoughtfully approach those who are not against TPP, those who have been somewhat waffling, and saying, this is why your constituents are against the TPP. And it was a process of so many people doing the work. I mean, James Root in Danbury got Danbury to sign a thing against
Shout
TPP.
out to James Root, thank you.
Cindy Davis in New Milford, who got New Milford to sign a thing against TPP. Brookfield said, we don't deal with national issues. Looking at you, Brookfield.
We are.
With the raised eyebrow like a pirate. But it...
Good friend Henry Pietras took it to them, and we didn't get exactly the honest response that we would have liked to have gotten, but at least the issue was brought up and put in front of folks that maybe hadn't thought about it being a local issue.
And it's great because it allowed folks who had wanted to continue to be active and have always been active to keep working. I mean, the Our Revolution group had a national TPP calling day where you'd call your representatives. And they focused, and it's worth stepping back and saying that the focus was on representatives because the belief was that President Obama was going to bring the TPP to vote in the lame duck session when nobody was paying attention. And it was believed that the Senate would pass it. So the focus and the strategy became go to the representatives. We believe that we can get enough of them to vote against it. So Our Revolution did a national calling day, call your representatives, call their local office, call their DC office, express to them why you're against it. Folks organized locally to get people calling and against it, showing up to events. And I have to say that Elizabeth Estee's statement, it wasn't just a two-line thing. It was actually a well thought out, well written, and couched in the idea of she has to do what's best for her local people. Now, and that's great. And so all the talk of President Obama bringing it up in the lame duck session has seemed to tail off.
They're biding their time, I have a feeling.
They may be biding their time. And so we've at least, I feel like we've potentially won at least through whatever day the inauguration is in January.
And they're counting heads too.
They are. And we will have to revisit this come January and see if everyone who, and you know, it's the age of politicking, we'll have to go back to every single candidate who said I'm against it. If they win their election, you have to go back and confirm they're still against it.
And the issue since we're talking local politics, let's just deviate to presidential politics for a moment, where one candidate, who's the one that's the molester?
Chester
the molester,
yes.
says, "Oh, I'm against all those." But you could find plenty of statements by him all along the way, starting with NAFTA, to say pretty clearly that he's pretty much a blatant liar. Not just about everything else, but about the trade agreements too. On the other hand, you have presidential candidate Clinton, who's been back and forth on this issue, and where Trump may be a liar, Clinton is about a half a step short of being a liar. She's disingenuous.
And of course, it was...
And she's for it, I believe.
Well, and that's the question. Is she for it? Is she against it? If she's really against it, why didn't she push for the platform at the convention to be against it? Because the platform, the Democratic platform, is not against it.
Right.
And so that's a very, very strange thing, given how much it feels like she has control over everything. If she's really against it, why did she not push to have it in the platform to be against it, especially as she claimed she was taking on Senator Sanders' personality? So
now who was it? Now this of course is a rhetorical question for the audience too. But who was it that motivated Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to switch from being for the Trans-Pacific Partnership and calling it the gold standard, in her own words, to being against it? Who motivated her to do that? A little sleight of hand with the Bernie Sanders button, but yeah, that's who it was. Thank you for, and he's right. He did get some important concessions along the way, out of the Democratic Party and out of the presidential candidate of the Democratic Party, and he did accomplish a lot. But you know,
But it's, you know, and it's, and what he accomplished ties very much into local politics.
Yes.
Because
how so?
It's, while he's not a part of the Our Revolution group, they have been very active in promoting down ticket or down ballot candidates, including 5 in Connecticut, one of which would be Ken Gucker, who is running against Mike McLaughlin in the 24th.
And Mike McLaughlin, isn't that the state senator? Now, they had a thing in the Danbury News-Times today about, or maybe it was yesterday, about Republican local candidates and asked them whether or not they were going to vote for Donald Trump. 17 local Republican candidates. 14 of them, 13 or 14, I think it's 13 of them, took the skunky way out of saying undecided. Now, if you can't decide at this point whether you're going to vote for Donald Trump, whether you're going to vote for Trump or Clinton, I understand, but whether or not you're going to support candidate Donald Trump, you should have figured that out by now. But 13 of them were really took the lazy man's approach and said undecided. There were 4 that, well, there were a couple of them, and if I could think of their names, I would give them a good shout out. Thank you for doing the right thing. But amongst the few that said, oh yes, I'm voting for Donald Trump, was Michael McLaughlin. And that's where Ken Gucker comes into this, because Ken Gucker, it's his first time out running for office. You know, it's tough to run for an office like state senator. And maybe he's had a hard, you know, it's difficult. So give him give him an A for effort though, because he has pointed out very clearly, and as Michael McLaughlin has too, that Michael McLaughlin is in Donald Trump's pocket.
And the thing though with someone like Ken is we're all looking at each other and saying, these are the folks who have been in for a really long time. What have they done? Now, I feel like every time somebody talks positively about Mike McLaughlin, it's simply, well, he got us, you know, this little thing here. This, you know, he wrote a letter to the state and this sign here, or this, you know, honorarium here. And I don't hear, but those things, those little things for each of the little groups gets people to vote for him.
Yeah, you reach out and you answer a call, you answer an email, you get back to people when they ask you about something, and that's a good thing.
But you look at folks like that, and as they feed up higher into the system, those are the folks who are in the pocket of someone. And so it's why a group like Brand New Congress, who is looking at 2018 and turning over the entirety of the House and the Senate, they're looking for non-political candidates. They're looking for folks that can be trusted to, Mr. Smith goes to Washington and not take the big money, not sell out the people. And so in some way, Ken's ahead of the curve on this, where he's standing up and saying, I don't have the experience, but experience isn't always a good thing. Let's go back to Secretary Clinton, and she touts experience, but there's no success there. You can sit in that chair for 20 years, and if all you've done is take $50 million for New York to rebuild after September 11th because you promised your vote on the Iraq War, you haven't done very much. And that interview where she says that is very frightening. But we're getting away from the points. I'm going to push that over there.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Ken is great on the front lines of saying, you know what? I'm a person who has been here fighting for the people as an activist. Let's take me into the seat, and you can all come with me. I mean, that was the great thing about Zephyr Teachout. Her comment was, when I get elected,
and yes, that is a real person.
Yes, Zephyr Teachout in New York, who had a great rally that we were at a few weeks ago.
New Paltz,
said, when I get elected and I'm in D.C., you are all coming with me.
All of,
and that
even
is
folks that don't vote for her.
Yes.
And that's really, in fact, a very important point to make, because neither presidential candidate that says anything good about anybody that's not going to vote for them. They're pretty much dismissive of, and this is reflected in the fact that 70% of registered voters don't like either one of them. There's a reason for this.
But so for someone like Ken, where it becomes really important, and I know he's looking for folks, is if you want to get out and knock on doors with him, they need folks to knock on doors. You want to phone bank and make phone calls and get people out to vote, get them out to vote. Because that's going to be one of the biggest things, is there are going to be so many folks who don't want to vote. They forget that the down ballot candidates need our support. So you can reach out, you can find him online. I can't remember his website. I want to say you just do the Google thing, the Yahoo thing, the Bing thing.
Well, in defense of Mike McLaughlin, you really can't say that he hasn't done anything in his time in office. Well, he, in fact, made a very strenuous effort to bring a bill in front of the Connecticut the Connecticut legislature, a bill which had something to do with presidential candidates having to prove that they were born in the United States in order to actually get on the ballot for a presidential election. And thankfully, even his own party looked at him and said, "What are you, crazy?" But yes, Michael McLaughlin was, and probably will continue to be, what we refer to as a birther.
Well, it had something to do with a time machine and traveling back and filming the birth and having it time stamped. I mean, it's some.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if that really qualifies as accomplishing anything as a state senator when you want to bring a bill up that basically wants to take a jab at the president of the United States and question for the umpteenth time whether they were born in the United States, which he clearly was. By the way, Mike, which he clearly was, and you really ought to come out and apologize for that.
Ooh.
Other elections.
Let's continue the theme of folks who are new to the scene and running against folks who are kind of stale bread. Rahib Ali Brennan.
Rahib, yep. Mm-hmm. Rahib, yep.
And the slight against him has been that he hasn't been in politics, but you have to start somewhere. And if you're looking for...
Well, he has been on
he was on the Wetlands Commission
yeah.
in Bethel.
Yep.
And if you're looking at a race where you're going, okay, so you have somebody who is new to the game, or maybe that's the thing, doesn't want to be part of the game, versus someone who got trounced twice in the Bethel selectman election.
But I'm going to say on both, I'm going to be very equitable when it comes to that race.
You are always more equitable than I am.
Well, I really believe that both candidates, both Mike Duff and Rahib Ali Brennan, have made a very clear, very concise case for what they believe in. So with them, it's not a personality thing, it's a what do you actually believe in? Where is your heart? What do you believe in? What are your values? And I think for this particular race, you have to look at both candidates and what they've said and what their values are, and let your vote reflect your values, and that's fine. That's America at its best.
It should be an interesting race just on when you look at it. In the primary in April, Bernie won Bethel.
Yep.
And so we know there's support there. There's a Democratic first selectman, although the entire rest of the offices are all Republican. It's really an oddity in the modern age.
It is, but that's, I think, a reflection of the fact that the Bethel is it's an old style New England town. The Republicans, for the most part, with a few exceptions, Bill Hillman. Let's see, a few other ones out there, are pretty New England-y kind of Republicans, old-style Republicans.
Yes.
And they're pretty good guys. The folks come and do the show for the Republican Party after us here. It's aired on a different time, but they're pretty good guys, and I hear a lot of buyer's remorse with their Republican candidate for president. They're really, they may end up voting for him, but it's going to be, they'll be holding their nose and voting for him if they vote for him.
I've had very good conversations with Will about the idea of needing a non-establishment candidate.
Yeah.
And again, it's amazing. We keep going back to the presidential thing, but Trump and Bernie were two completely opposite sides.
Polar opposites, yeah.
But of the need for ending the establishment.
Yeah.
And it's why Secretary Clinton is having such a difficult time, because there is a lot of anti-establishment sentiment out there, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
And so you look at it and you go, if you're a fiscal conservative, a Republican who wants see taxes lowered and spending cut down, and that's where you voted all these years, and you have Trump, who's a raging racist, you don't want to support that. But you're not going to vote for Hillary because you've stood against the Clinton cartel for decades.
So what do you do? What do you do then?
Vote for Jill?
There you go. If your leanings are toward the liberal progressive side, you vote for Jill Stein. If your leanings are for the libertarian side,
Vote for Gary.
Vote for Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson and Bill Weld are two very thoughtful individuals. Jill Stein and Barack, I can't pronounce his last name, but respectfully, good candidates, good, honest people, and this is the one common denominator that I think is missing from both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. There's a distrust on people's parts because both of them have been on every side of every issue. Nobody really knows what either one of them really believes in, other than the fact that one was married to a rapist and the other one is a rapist.
And you like anywhere, without having the candidates in front of you, without having a debate, without people coming out and seeing, if all you have is a web page with your platform and the potential of seeing someone at a fair or an event or whatever, you don't ever get to really know. And I guess in some way it's a call out to, I mean, maybe Jill and Gary will come on in the next week before. I mean, they didn't get to debate on the national stage. Maybe we can give them a place. But it would be grand to be able to facilitate locally more. I mean, Elizabeth Esty and Clay Cope had one debate this past week.
Yep.
Clay Cope had called for 41, one in every town, which is kind of the other extreme of things. But I feel like in the local politics, be it a state race, a congressional race, even selectman races, there needs to be more of a culture of getting the 2 or 3 or however many candidates in front of the people and really encouraging that oratory, in some way like it's 1910 and the 2 of them are on the back of a train car. Maybe that's what we should do. We should sponsor a rolling debate on a Metro North train that goes up the line and it stops at each town. You get off, you're on the platform, you have 20 minutes, you get back on, you go to the next.
Nice.
The Progressive Soup rolling debate train.
That sounds like a really good idea. Well, we're going to come back when we do our second show, and we're going to talk, you touched on the notion of after the election, you touched on the notion of our revolution, which is what evolved out of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and we're going to talk a little bit about what folks can do going forward after the election, because you know that the next election starts the day after this election. So it's time to start thinking about what you're going to do with multi-parties. And with that, this has been Progressive Soup. I'm David Stevenson, Mark Morash, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little further. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening.